Thank you very much. Hola, buenos días. Selenium is already 20 years. Time flies, huh? It's been a long journey since Selenium was created by Jason Hagen in 2004. And I have to say I had a story with Selenium. It's been really part of my career. And if you allow me, I'm going to explain the history of Selenium through my personal history. And this journey began around 2007. At that time, I was doing my PhD dissertation at Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. And my dissertation was focused on software quality for web applications. And so I started to use Selenium very early. Back in the day, we had Selenium 1. We had Selenium Remote Control. This was a client-server architecture in which, JavaScript library was injected in the browser, and thanks to JavaScript, the browser automation was done. It was a game changer at that time, right? But nowadays, of course, this is deprecated. This is not recommended at all. But many people start using Selenium for browser automation, and one of the people was me. So next step in my journey is Universidad Juan Carlos de Madrid. I joined this university as a postdoctoral research, and we did a very nice project called Curento. Curento was a WebRTC media server, which allows real-time communication between browsers, right, with video and audio, and provide advanced capabilities for media processing. So it was a very successful project. It was acquired by Twilio. That's a different story. But for Selenium, it was a very interesting use case because we needed browsers to make the end-to-end testing of this platform. So I proposed to use Selenium WebDriver to test this project, Selenium, called Curento, sorry. And at that year, we already have Selenium WebDriver. This is Selenium 2. And this is a complete different architecture compared to Selenium Remote Control. It was done joining the efforts of Simon Stewart, creator of WebDriver, and Jason Hagen, creator of Selenium. Both together combined forces and created Selenium WebDriver. So in this new architecture, we have a piece in the middle of the browser and the script, which is the driver. Right? The driver insert is a binary file which talks the native communication on the one hand with the browser and offers a protocol to be used by test automation tools like Selenium, for example. So this is great. This architecture was a giant leap for browser automation, but for Selenium users, this is a strong requirement because we need to put this driver in the middle of the communication between the script and the browser. So we need the driver. For example, we need Chrome driver for Chrome, Gecko driver for Firefox, and so on. So Selenium user must manage, understood as download, set up, and maintain these drivers in order to drive browsers with our WebDriver approach. So in these days, a test using Selenium WebDriver would look like the following. This is a JUnit, right? Java was my mother tongue, so I was using Selenium through Java. And in this JUnit test, at some point in the code, we need to resolve the driver. We need to port the path of this driver somewhere in order to Selenium to find this driver and start the browser with that. So, well, you can live with that. At that moment, well, it was not very the most, optimal solution, but it worked. And yeah, my next step in my journey was another university. In parallel to being a postdoctoral researcher in Juan Carlos, I had a second job in this university called UTAD, Centro Universitario de Tecnología y Arte Digital, also in Madrid. And, well, it was my first year as a lecturer. So in the second semester, 2015, I gave a course about web programming, which was great for me because it was part of my career. And I wanted my students to learn testing. I wanted to know automated testing for web applications. And for that, I wanted to teach, well, JUnit and Selenium. I created a lecture about this. And when I was creating the Selenium WebDriver part, right, well, the first thing that you need to know is the driver thing. You need to resolve this driver before you can start automating your browser. And for me, this was not optimal, as I said. I wanted my student to go to the beef, to the good part, playing with the Selenium API, and not struggling with the setup of the Chrome driver. So I looked for a solution for this problem because I thought that this could be automated. I found that there is no tool that makes this job. So I created my own solution. I created WebDriverManager 1.0.0, was created for my students. This is my objective of this tool, simply that my student has an easier setup of Selenium WebDriver, and it worked. They used this tool for a practice I did. Everyone was cool. So, well, I was happy. After that, well, I did twice. I did two things. First, I started to use WebDriverManager in Currento in my project. And second, I answered a question in Stack Overflow recommending the use of WebDriverManager. Because it's open source, it's free to use, you can use it. The release is in Maven Central, so you simply put the coordinates in your project and you start using it. And the funny thing is that, yeah, people start using it, right? It seems that this was a real problem, that there was not a good solution for this. So, well, also, because Stack Overflow is read by millions of developers, this somehow, well, made some visibility of WebDriverManager for the community. And in the next years, I continue maintaining. I noticed that WebDriverManager was used by different people. I saw pull requests, back requests, feature requests. And I invest my time in the following years maintaining WebDriverManager. Nowadays, WebDriverManager, it's, well, I call it automated driver management, which is this thing about the drivers, but also it has different helper features for Selenium WebDriver in Java. So, this is how a complete test, a unit test using WebDriverManager look like. At some point, before the logic of Selenium WebDriver, we need to make a single call to WebDriverManager to set up cron driver in this example. So, indeed, it seems that WebDriverManager was doing something that was required. We was providing a feature that Selenium developers wanted, because with time, other managers appeared. Well, it appeared something exactly the same name for some reason, WebDriver-Manager for JavaScript, exactly the same name, WebDriver-Manager for Python. By the way, when I get this name, WebDriverManager was not a thing. I looked for this in Google, and it got 0 results. But after that, we have the JavaScript, Python, .NET, and also Titus maintained its own manager, which is WebDrivers. So all of this ecosystem somehow fulfill the problem of driver management, but not all of them will behave the same way. So, also a big milestone for me was participating in Selenium Conf Tokyo 2018. This is me and Tokyo presenting a version of WebDriverManager. Also, I presented another tool of mine, which is called Selenium Jupyter, which is another history. And this was very important for me, not only for going to Tokyo and presenting this, but for meeting the Selenium members. Right? This, for me, was a great opportunity to get in touch with Diego Molina, which is a tech lead in the project. Also, for the first time, Simon, the WebDriver creator and Selenium project lead. And it was amazing to get in touch with these people. So, next step in this journey is 2020. I joined Universidad Carlos III de Madrid, which is my current university. I am associate professor now there. And test automation with Selenium and WebDriver becomes somehow my main research line. For example, in 2021, I made a paper in a journal about automated data management for Selenium WebDriver. I tried to explain, this is a long paper, all the details about this process, all the details about WebDriverManager, and why this is required in development for Selenium. And I discovered something interesting in this paper. Well, I discovered the maintenance, it's maybe the most difficult part of all of this process. Because modern web browsers, Chrome, Firefox, are evergreen. Evergreen means that a browser automatically and silently updates to the next version once it's available. So let me explain why this is relevant for testing. Let's suppose we have Chrome in your machine, and at that moment it's Chrome 126. Okay? You want to drive this browser with Selenium, right? So you look the documentation of Chrome driver and discover that you need a specific version of Chrome driver. You get this driver, put available for Selenium, and, well, your test start running, okay? That's okay. But Chrome is evergreen, so at some point, it will bump to 127 automatically. You are not going to notice. But you still have the previous driver, 126. But this time, there is compatibility. The driver and the browser match, and you can drive Chrome with Selenium. But eventually, at some point, okay, Chrome will go to the next version, and if you haven't updated your driver, you have already the old version. And in this particular case, this version doesn't match. You cannot drive Chrome 128 with Chrome driver 126. So eventually, you will get an error in your test if you are doing this with Selenium with this error message. This version of Chrome driver only supports Chrome version 126 in this example. So in the paper, I did the other thing. I look for this term, this search query. This version of Chrome driver only supports Chrome version in Google Trends. And I discovered some peaks, right? So it means that some moments there are more people searching for this term in Google. And in the slide, you can see there is a point which is when the major releases of Chrome happened. So you can see there are some coincidences, right? And that makes sense, because if you have resolved your driver manually, eventually you will get this error, for sure, because Chrome is going to evolve, and at some point the compatibility is going to be broken. So automatic driver management was a real problem, and tools like WebDriverManager solves this problem. So what happened with Selenium? What thought Selenium about this problem? Well, back in the day, 2020 more or less, well, still Selenium said that Selenium was not an all batteries included framework. So the driver was something which is not part of the Selenium core, let's say. So in 2020, David Barnes made the first Selenium survey. They asked different aspects of Selenium. And in 2021, he published the result of this survey. And one of the most clear results of this survey is that Selenium users wanted this feature, wanting batteries included. They wanted driver management out of the box in Selenium. Right? So next step comes me to join SOS Labs in 2022. Well, SOS Labs has an open source project office, so they promote open source, that this is great, that companies also invest in open source, because, well, SOS Labs is in the DNA of this company. And, well, since I met Diego Molina, which is the leader of the open source project office in SOS Labs, well, I remember seeing a tweet about this office was looking for a role to be joined the open source project office in SOS. And since I have met Diego, I asked him, well, what do you think if I apply for this position? And he says, yeah, sure. That could be great. So I did some interviews, and eventually I joined SOS for almost a year. That was great, because by joining SOS at the open source project office, I started contributing to Selenium, right? For me, it was like a dream job, because I was doing contributing to the core Selenium, and that for me was a dream. So I started contributing to documentation, to the tests in Selenium, and eventually we started the development of Selenium Manager. So what is Selenium Manager? Selenium Manager is the official manager. It implements similar features to WebDriverManager, but built in Selenium. So it is a CLI tool. I don't know if you know this, but Selenium Manager, it's implemented to be executed on the shell. Right? Selenium Manager, it has been developed in Rust. Rust is an interesting language. I recommend you to take a look if you want. It's interesting, and it's very convenient for creating CLI applications. Right? Now with time, it was a good decision to do this in Rust. And Selenium Manager, it's cheap. It's binary. We get the Rust code and compiled to Windows, Linux, and Mac. And each binary is shipped. It's included in each Selenium release. right? So each time now we create a release, Java, JavaScript, Ruby, Python, and .NET, inside we have these batteries, these 3 batteries, which is basically the 3 binaries compiled for the main operating system, Windows, Linux, and Mac, which is Selenium Manager. Now, each time, starting in Selenium 4.6, you create a driver object, for example, Chrome driver for Chrome, in any language, in any binding, Java, JavaScript, .NET, Python, and Ruby. Under the hood, we will have Selenium Manager resolving the driver for you, right? All the lessons learned from WebDriverManager now applies to Selenium Manager through this Rust tool. And maybe you didn't even notice because it's transparent to you. You only you only type you need a Chrome driver object, and eventually you have the browser. Under the hood, Selenium Manager is resolving the driver for you. So Selenium Manager provides this feature, automatic driver management out of the box for any binding release since Selenium 4.6. Okay. This means, let me make, focus the procedure which happens in this feature. Selenium Manager, to implement this, first discover the browser version you have locally. Imagine you have Chrome 134. Then discover the driver version you need for that browser. For that, it requests online endpoints, in this case from driver. And in this particular example, we discovered that we need this specific release, Chrome driver, whatever. And of course, at some point, it downloads this driver, the artifact, extract the driver, and cache in a local folder in your computer. Next time, of course, it will be reused from then. So this is somehow reduce the algorithm implementing in Selenium Manager learn for WebDriverManager. So this is how a complete test looks like with Selenium Manager. Okay? It is a unit again, but of course this is available for all languages. This is a good thing, that you only request the creation of a Firefox driver in this example, and Selenium Manager under the hood make everything for you. But Selenium Manager is not only this. Now provides another relevant feature, because imagine you try to execute this test with an old version of Selenium, but Firefox is not available, right? What happens if Firefox is not available historically in Selenium? Well, typically this fails, okay? A requirement in the old days of Selenium is having the browser, of course. Otherwise, you cannot drive the browser. But this is no longer true, because now Selenium Manager also provides a very relevant feature, which is automatic browser management. So this means that the same process for drivers applies for browsers as well. In this example, if you don't have Firefox, Selenium Manager is going to download, okay, and compress the binary release of Firefox for you, and it's going to be available for your Selenium test out of the box. You don't need to do anything, even if you don't have the browser. So this feature is available for Chrome, Firefox, and Edge in the most relevant operating system, Windows, Linux, and Mac. There is an asterisk. This is starting in Edge, because Edge is special in Windows. For some reason, they don't want us to see the content of the installer, the MSI artifact. So Edge in Windows requires administrator permission. I even have asked Microsoft people if this can be avoided, and it cannot be, because the MSI is designed like that to be executed with admin permission. So that's the only, corner case in this compatibility matrix of Selenium Manager. If you want Edge, you also need administrator permission. Also very relevant in this matrix is that, Chrome, when we were developing this feature, Chrome, you have the regular Chrome, that's it, you have Chromium as well. And it was difficult to pin a specific browser version, right? Because Chrome was designed to be latest always, let's say. But, there was a coincidence, but when we were developing this feature, the Chrome team released Chrome for testing. Chrome for testing is something quite great for us testers, because it's a specialized version of Chrome designed for browser automation. So what's the difference between Chrome for testing and Chrome? Chrome for testing is not Evergreen. So, which means no automatic updates happens. And this is very nice for pinning a browser version for testing, right? So this is the first important difference. And the second is that Chrome for testing somehow is lighter. There are some features available in Chrome, not available in Chrome for testing, especially those related to the user. Password manager, user profile, these features are not available in Chrome for testing. But for testing, it's OK. For testing, Chrome for testing is good. Yeah, Selenium Manager use these releases whenever you don't have Chrome in your computer. But even more, well, there is more. Because, well, Selenium Manager also allows you to select browser versions. And that's something, well, this is one of my favorite features, to be honest. Because, well, yeah, I said that Selenium Manager search the latest, the stable version at this moment, but also you can, using simply the Selenium API, select a given browser version to be used in your test. This can be a fixed version, I don't know, Chrome 130, whatever. But also, and this is what I like most, unstable versions. You can select beta, dev, and nightly version, both for Chrome, Edge, and Firefox. Okay? So I believe this is a great opportunity for tester to test in advance your application in the next browser, in the next real browser your users are going to use in advance, right? Today, you can test using 2 versions ahead nightly, and start discovering bugs early in your development process. So yeah, this is out of the box. You only need 3 lines of code to achieve this, and under the hood, Selenium Manager do this for you in all Selenium bindings. So, other uses of Selenium Manager. Well, I have explained the 2 biggest features of Selenium Manager, automatic driver management and browser driver management, but of course, there are others. Secondary features, I would say, but of course, you can use a rich configuration capabilities. This is something I learned from WebDriverManager. For testers or for browser automators, configuration is key. In many cases, we need a specific setup, we need a specific behavior of the tool, and having rich configuration capability sometimes is the difference, makes a big difference for developers. So I did this already in WebDriverManager, and I also put a big effort in provide rich configuration capabilities in Selenium Manager. It can be done through the Selenium API. For example, well, the browser version is an example, but also the proxy, because Selenium Manager makes network requests. And if you are behind a proxy, for example, in a company, you need to set up your proxy properly to make the request through your network. So that can be done with the Selenium API, but also there is some capabilities using a configuration file, global configuration file for everything related to Selenium Manager, and also with environment variables, which can be key if you want to configure, for example, your configuration integration, your CI server. So this is the first. I recommend you to take a look to the documentation, which is very comprehensive about all of the configuration capabilities. And the second secondary feature, let's say, I would say it's not used by many, but of course, Selenium Manager is a CLI tool, right? It's used by the Selenium bindings, but if you want, if you need it, you can get the different releases of Selenium Manager, Windows, Linux, and Mac, and using from the shell, right? Just in case you need drivers for your own case, whatever it is, or browsers, if you need it as well. You can, well, there are different options, different arguments you can type in the shell and get all the functionality for you using the terminal. So yes, again, if you need more information, please go to the documentation because everything is there. So what happened with WebDriverManager? Because yeah, Selenium Manager is, well, it can be cool, you need it, but what happened with WebDriverManager is dead, right? I am going to terminate the project because we already have something maybe better, right? Well, to answer this question, let's see the numbers. Let's see the numbers because I maintain the tool, the usage statistics is in Event Central, and I get access to this data. So let's see what is happening in the last 4 years. This is the statistics of number of downloads of WebDriverManager for the last 4 years. And this can be a surprise, because it seems that WebDriverManager is more popular than ever. right? So there are more downloads than ever, right? In January 25, there were 2.9 million downloads that month, only that month. Almost 3 million downloads in January 25. So, well, people is not using Selenium Manager at all. What's happening here? Well, there is a second chart that I want to show that also gives some idea what is happening. And this is the unique IPs. Well, this chart shows something different, right? Because at the beginning of this chart, let's say 2021 to 2022, well, WebDriverManager was gaining popularity, and there is a month that this trend changed. As this month is November 22. At that moment, we had like 400,000 unique IPs, right, using WebDriverManager monthly, which is the peak. But for something happened that many users started leaving WebDriverManager, and well, in 2 months, we went from 400,000 to 250,000 unique IPs, which means 25% less unique IPs, less users. Well, this is not a coincidence, right? Because that month, we released Selenium Manager, right? And that's fair. I knew that this is going to happen because we already providing the feature built in Selenium, so what's the reason to continue using WebDriverManager? So yeah, I knew that was going to happen, and I was happy because, well, I am also the one that I'm maintaining Selenium Manager, so I am happy with this. But there is a second red we can take to this data, because after that, well, the trend was not like this. It's like now we have more or less a stable mean of 250,000 unique IPs monthly. So, why is happening this? Well, I suppose there are different reasons. One of them is that, well, if something works, don't touch it, right? And if people are using WebDriverManager and it's still working, and it still works, actually works, why should I change? Maybe I don't know about Selenium Manager. My test simply works, so I continue happy. And also, there's another reason, because WebDriverManager also provides different features. As I said earlier, WebDriverManager provides also other helper features for Selenium WebDriver. So, well, I have to say that WebDriverManager is 10 years already. It's, again, time flies, and just previous week, March 19, was the 10th birthday of WebDriverManager. It's something unbelievable, how fast is going everything. This means that WebDriverManager has been the half of the Selenium project live, so I'm happy with that. And to celebrate the birthday, that day, 19 March 2025, I released WebDriverManager 6, right? Because it seems that it's still used out there, so I'm happy maintaining the tool. Well, maybe the most relevant feature that is shipping with WebDriverManager 6 has to do with automated browser management. It's a feature I already explained that Selenium Manager provides, but it was already provided in WebDriverManager since version 5 in 2021. But WebDriverManager uses a very different approach. The browser management is done through Docker. So, simply using the WebDriverManager API, we can specify the browser should be executing in a Docker container, right? Then we have the method create to create a WebDriver instance. And this instance, in this particular example, is a Chrome, which is executed in a Docker container. And well, in my opinion, this can be great to delegate all the browser management infrastructure to Docker. Of course, you need Docker. That's the requirement you need to get in your CI server or in your machine. But after that, you can select different browsers and different versions, including unstable versions, out of the box with the WebDriverManager API. But something happened in December 2024, some months ago, because this feature is supported because the Docker images that WebDriverManager used was created and maintained by a Russian company called Aerocube. right? These guys. From here, I had to say thank you because they had created these magnificent tools all of this year, and it's a big thank you for this relevant contribution to the community. But suddenly, in December 2024, they stopped this maintenance. So there is no more Docker images by Arrowcube anymore. So I realized this around January, February this year. So for me, it was, well, a problem discovering this because this feature was broken somehow. Now, my browser managed by WebDriverManager is only, well, it's not updated, right? Because there are no more new images in Docker Hub. So for this reason, I implemented a feature that I longer wanted to implement, but I wouldn't find the time to do it, which is doing, well, supporting this feature, but through Docker Selenium, right? And this is what happens in WebDriverManager 6. I migrated all the logic to start the Arrowcube images, but using the Docker Selenium images, which, as you might note, Docker Selenium, it's a part of the Selenium project. It's a collection of Docker images for Edge, Browse, Chrome, and Firefox. Different versions, stable versions, beta version, dev version, everything in Docker Hub open to be used for anyone. So now, WebDriverManager 6, it's a user of these images. And the API has changed. I had luck. Everything was in WebDriverManager 5. It's now available in WebDriverManager 6, but using Docker Selenium. So this is, well, this is great. In addition, thanks to using this feature of Docker browser in Docker, we have another very relevant features, in my opinion, which is video recording, right? When we specify we want a browser in Docker, we also using this builder pattern in the WebDriver API, we can also specify that we want to record the session. Enable recording, that's it. And then create, and with that, in addition to pull the Docker images and start the browser for you in Docker, we are going to use a second container with ffmpeg. And with this tool, which, as you probably know, it's for media manipulation, we record the session and we create an MP4 video for you with your automatization, right? And this feature, in my experience, can be key for troubleshooting, for fire analysis, which is one of the most time-consuming aspects related to browser automation, at least in my experience. So you have this out of the box simply using WebDriverManager and using this capability. Okay? But there is more. Maybe because I like much this feature, video recording, that's something I wanted to provide to Selenium user out of the box. In 2021, I believe it was, I provided a second feature related to video recording, not using Docker, right? Using a different approach. Using, well, the API is called watch because it's like monitoring the session, right? Using the WebDriver API. And at some point, you invoke the method start recording and stop recording. Thanks to this, WebDriverManager is going to record only the viewport, right? Not the whole desktop like we do in with Docker. We record only the browser, the viewport, what the user sees. And how this is done? Well, it's a bit complex internally. The API is quite simple, as you can see, basically three lines. But internally, there is something called Browser Watcher, which is a browser extension I created to provide advanced capabilities thinking in Selenium. And one of them is recording the viewport, recording the tab. This is done through the API called tab capture, sorry, tab capture. It's an API which is implemented in Edge, in Chromium browser, Edge and Chrome, but unfortunately it's not available in Firefox. So this feature is, well, it's great, but the inconvenience is only available in Edge and Chrome, okay? But it's there. If you need it, you simply need to do this, and that's it. You will have the recording only of the viewport that you are interacting with Selenium, okay? So there is even more features. There is also, thanks to this browser watcher, you can even gather the console of your browser. Thanks to this to meter, watch and get logs. In fact, this feature was quite relevant some years ago because some years ago this feature wasn't available in Firefox, but nowadays we have by Die, which also implements this feature. So well, no, it's not that relevant today, but just in case, this is already available for you using this browser watcher extension through WebDriverManager. So, yeah, you can get more info, for example, in the documentation of WebDriverManager. Okay? And let's start concluding a bit. I'm now reaching my, well, somehow conclusions. So, well, what happens with these two tools, right? The first question is Selenium Manager a replacement of WebDriverManager? Well, as I see it, for the case of automated driver management, yes. This means if you are using WebDriverManager, or other manager, by the way, I didn't mention that the other manager also appears, but if you are using one of the managers for driver management, my recommendation is to switch to Selenium Manager, right? Because, well, you doesn't need an additional library, it's a dependency in your project, but something which is built in by Selenium. So yes, if you are using WebDriverManager for driver management, you can switch safely to Selenium Manager. Then, second question, what is the difference between WebDriverManager and Selenium Manager? Well, there are different relevant differences. First, WebDriverManager is for Java only, it's a Java library. And Selenium Manager is for all the Selenium bindings, Java, JavaScript, Python, Ruby, and .NET. Then, related browser management, there is a typo here. It's automatic driver browser management in both cases. There are different approaches here. WebDriverManager implements this feature through Docker, right? And Selenium Manager implements this feature using the browser binary releases, right? Portable releases for Windows, Mac, and Linux, right? For example, in the case of Chrome, this is done through Chrome for testing. And finally, WebDriverManager and Selenium Manager has other features. For example, WebDriverManager provides video recording, 2 types of video recording, and also monitoring capabilities to this extension browser watcher. And finally, Selenium Manager is not the main use case, I suppose, but if you need it, you can use it as a CLI tool. So, what is next? Well, I'm devoted to maintain both tools, right? WebDriverManager is somehow my side project for years, and since I feel that it's still used for people and it's still helpful, I devoted to continue maintaining. And of course, now I am part of the Selenium technical committee in Selenium. So my responsibility, let's say, for me, it's continue providing Selenium Manager a cool tool, a working tool for every Selenium user. So yeah, I will continue spending my time in maintaining both tools. Nowadays, the WebDriverManager backlog is empty because I made a release, Selenium 6, last week. But I have to say that in these 10 years, I have made 97 releases of WebDriverManager. So most of the time, each time I did a release, I always thought that it was the final release. I always had the impression that this is it. This is WebDriverManager, this is done. All features are complete. I can't do anything else, and it's perfect. And you know what? That never happened. Always something happened because there was always bug fees, because WebDriverManager depends on many external pieces, so it's very easy to something to broke. And there is always some features, interesting features. I had the impression that it's appealing for users. So in 30 years, as I said, many releases, and I suppose this will continue. I will continue with WebDriverManager as long as it's still helpful for the community. Related to Selenium Manager, of course, there are open issues. Not much, by the way. You can check the backlog in GitHub, and Selenium Manager is few, well, some of them. I'm not going to go in the details about that, but there is still some work to be done. And yes, for sure, in the next month, I will try to do these open issues. But I have to say it's very stable, right? Surprisingly, it works very nicely, and it seems that nothing happens. You simply use it, and maybe people are using it even without noticing that this is happening under the hood. Well, it's in beta. Selenium Manager since the beginning it's in beta. As I said, it's stable, but in beta. And it will go out of beta with Selenium 5, which, as you know, will happen by Christmas. And, well, last final word. Now I'm using my research hat here, and as I'm working in the university, I want to research, and I'm very interested in how you people are using Selenium. So I created a survey for this talk, for this magnificent conference. I have to say thank you to Diego and the people for organizing this, because it has been fantastic. And I created this survey for ask you to report your experience with Selenium, right? I know your time is priceless, but your experience can make the difference to understand what the challenges you face and eventually try to fix. So you have time, please, give me your experience about Selenium with this survey. And now that's it. Thank you very much.